Hi, welcome to this Sunday morning's creative session with Tattva. My name is Rajiv, and I'll be taking you through an hour or 45 minute long guided writing session. So I hope everybody's got their coffees out. I've definitely got my coffee and ready for some creativity. So we'll wait for a few people to join and we can take it from there. So if you're joining, say good morning. If you're joining from another part of the world, you may want to say good evening. I thought I'll try and catch the sun, but the clouds have actually just got in the way right now. Um, okay, so hi Vidu, hi Amar, hi Ella. So a few people have been asking, what's a bulletproof coffee? Now, it's not something that is an original invention. I'm sure people call it by different names, but I've come to call it a bulletproof coffee. And it's basically black coffee with coconut oil in. Now, that might seem yuck initially, but actually, it's got some great health benefits. So, if anybody has ever heard of the keto diet, I know a lot of people that a lot of friends and family, they've been on the keto diet and have found miraculous results from it. So, bulletproof coffee is something in your armory. Okay, Vidu, I've got to contend. Everybody's been asking about bulletproof coffee. Morning, Bharti Kaki. Good to see you here. Morning, Raghav. Morning, Priyanka. So, before we get started into actually writing, let's just do a few kind of breathing exercises, a few stretching exercises, just to get the blood flowing in the body. So, the first thing I want you to do is to sit comfortably with your back straight, um, and whilst moving your hands upright like this, I want you to take a nice deep breath in and then stretch and try and hold it there. And breath out and back down. We'll do that twice again. So deep breath in and out. And in and out. Okay, so is everybody ready? Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to read a passage from a book that I read probably about 10 years ago, but it's one that is full of so many insights. And whether you're in this field or not, I recommend you picking this up. It's called Rural Development, Putting the Last First. Um, so all you need to do is whatever comes to your mind, just write about it, whatever you want. There are no rules in terms of style or structure, whether it's prose or poetry, doesn't matter. Whether it's related or not, it doesn't matter. But just a backstory on this particular book is that it's trying to challenge the outsider perspective. Sometimes, as an outsider, when we come into a context, we often know what is good for that situation, and that's our own bias. So I'm going to read this out. Nutritionists take care to plan, to do their surveys when they can. Be sure the weather's fine and dry, the harvest in, food intake high. Then students seeking PhDs believe that everyone agrees that rains don't do for rural study, suits get wet and shoes get muddy. And bureaucrats, that urban type, wait prudently till crops are ripe before they venture to the field to put their question, what's the yield? The international experts' flights have other seasons, winter nights. In London, Washington, and Rome are what drive them in flocks from home. I'll read it out again, but in just 3 minutes, whatever comes to your mind, whatever you want to communicate, whether it's a past experience or anything, whether it's poetry or prose, based on what I've read, just write it down and you can share it on the comments. Nutritionists take care to plan, to do their surveys when they can. Be sure the weather's fine and dry, the harvest in, food intake high. Then students seeking PhDs believe that everyone agrees that rains don't do for rural study, suits get wet and shoes get muddy. And bureaucrats, that urban type, wait prudently till crops are ripe before they venture to the field to put the question, what's the yield? The international experts' flights have other seasons, winter nights. In London, Washington, and Rome are what drive them in flocks from home. So, just a few minutes, whatever comes to mind. Um, See if you can pen it down either on your own pad, writing pad, or typed up, or and feel free to share in the comments. In the meantime, I'm going to find some nice jazz music as background. Let's have a look. Okay, so let's draw it back in. So if you've got something that you want to share, feel free. Otherwise, let's move on. So just to give you a background about that passage, it's a critique of the outsider, and often somebody from the northern hemisphere going to a country in the southern hemisphere, into a poorer country, um, and not understanding their own bias when they get there, and particularly the fact that a lot of the poorer, more developing countries are they have a very, very sharp dry and wet season, and the wet season is often when their crop is produced. But the problem with the wet season is it's a very difficult season. People get sick, high mortality rates, the crop can be ruined, and it's generally a very difficult condition to live in. So when researchers from the more developed countries, or the richer countries, the West and the Northern Hemisphere countries come, they often opt not to come during the wet season. And so actually they don't get a full picture or an understanding of what's happening, but they still feel the need to provide help. And therefore the outsider's perspective. And in this passage, the poem goes, talks about nutritionists, PhD students, and bureaucrats who all seek to do their research when it's convenient for them. So that's that. Right. Okay. So the next activity is speed writing. So I'll give you a series of prompts, and they are the start to a sentence, and you've got to complete that sentence. Um, and here's the part where you do need to share, because that will work for the next activity. So whatever comes to mind, whether it's a sentence or two sentences, please comment, and so other people can read it as well, and it will make sense for the next activity. So I'm going to start the sentence and say dot dot dot, and you've got to complete it. I am addicted to dot dot dot. I overheard dot dot dot. I overheard dot dot dot. I admire dot dot dot. I'll probably go a bit slower. Give you some time. I dream of one day when dot dot dot. Okay, the next prompt. I like my friend because dot dot dot. I like my friend because. Some good stuff coming there. Priyanka, Pratima, Sumit, Raghav. So that last one was I like my friend because dot dot dot. Next one. I don't like my friend because dot dot dot. I don't like my friend because dot dot dot. Raghav, don't know what you're missing out on. Okay, so next one. I get confused when. I get confused when dot dot dot. Pratima, I like your one. Are you sure it's made up though? Priyanka, I don't like my friend because she fails to see how amazing she is. Wow. Her heart is pure and good, her tongue is sharp and honest, and her friendship is one of the greatest blessings in life. Wow. Maybe as a follow on from that, how many times do we actually acknowledge our friends? Okay, next one. I am humbled by dot dot dot. What are you humbled by? Okay, so take a bit of a break, stretch your fingers, and if you haven't already, share one line that you've written in the comments. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just whatever comes to your mind. So let's just read a few. So we had I dream of one day when I can be truly heard, not talked over, and take command of a room despite my gender. I overheard the birds singing this morning. They may have met their own tune, but I certainly didn't find the rhythm. I'm addicted to your divine gaze, following me in every corner of the galaxy. I admire those that heal and contribute. I admire those who put others first. So for the next minute, I want everyone to pick one line from somebody else, one line from one of the comments, and use that as a writing prompt. And write anything you want, but use somebody else's prompt and probably comment on their prompt. So you've got just 1 minute. Pick a comment and comment on that comment. They do. I am humbled by art with no name at the bottom, fruit that goes rotten, and those who work into old age like Dot Cotton. Brilliant. So you've got 1 minute to comment on somebody else's comment. Use that as a prompt. Okay, so the next exercise. So we all know that we're living in this pandemic, and the health health sector is going through pretty tough time at the moment, and that doesn't mean that our health has to suffer though. And to prevent that, or to help alleviate that, the Public Health England and various other agencies have tried to promote various health promotion strategies, and they usually use slogans. And so, what I want to do is I'm going to share a slogan or an objective, and I want you to develop a creative message around it. It could be a story, it could be in first person, it could be in second person, third person, whatever it is. But I want you to build a creative message around that one objective. And it's a very simple objective that we all want people to adhere to and to take advice on. But it's often very difficult to convince people. So I'll give you an objective and write one creative message. Again, prose or poetry, doesn't matter, first, second, or third person, but it's got to touch, move, and inspire somebody to act. So the first one, and I'll give you 2 minutes. So the first one is wear your mask. So develop a creative message around that to encourage people to wear their masks. And the most creative message, I'll use that when I'm promoting healthy living to some of my patients. So, um, really, honestly, like this is something that we really need right now. Cover your face and give people space. It's a good one. Sumit, wear your mask, not such a hard task. If you're a brummie, this might sound funny. Got me there. Proud brummie. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Uh, so another big campaign is exercise more and eat clean. Exercise more and eat clean. What's the creative message that will inspire people to act on that? Be like Batman, wear your mask and cape. Wear your mask, not such a hard task, says the Londoner. So let's get some for exercise and eating clean. So exercise more and eat clean. What's the creative message around that to help promote that? Okay, so the next one. Stop smoking. Stop smoking. Smoking has all these what we call prothrombotic side effects, which means that your blood is going to clot very easily and block your arteries. And it's bad. It's bad for you. No better time but now to stop smoking. There's a lot of help around, there's a lot of free telephone numbers in your local area. So the message is stop smoking. Do your push ups if you want to get up again tomorrow or not. Sometimes your arm's going to be killing. Stop smoking. Okay, and the final one in the health category: don't suffer in silence, speak to someone. Don't suffer in silence, speak to someone. Now, we've had a few webinars on mental health, and as we know, it's a lot more common than we think. Actually, just in the last week, I've had probably about 15, 20 patients um, seeking advice on their mental well-being, and it can be a tough situation. And often the first step is just to acknowledge that something is not right, or you feel that something is not right, and then knowing that you can trust somebody and speak to them freely about how you're feeling. So, and not keep it hidden within you, because it just grows. So don't suffer in silence, speak to someone. Is there a creative message around that? Perhaps even think of it when you're creating this message from that person's perspective. So think about developing a creative message from a first person perspective rather than necessarily a second person asking them to do something. What's a first person perspective? I suppose the reason why I say that is a lot of health promotion is done targeted at people. You're given a ton of advice to follow, um, and it doesn't really connect you. It doesn't really move you. Um, Maybe there's a problem in how it's communicated. So, is there a first person perspective? So, I'll give you another minute or so. So, what we got? So, we've got stop smoking. No, really, I'm not joking. Increases the risk of blood getting thick. So, reach out, get help, and get ready to quit. Or else you'll be in a whole world of trouble. Your risk of health issues will more than double. Don't suffer in silence. Speak to someone before you scream. Can you imagine an advert like that? Actually, could be quite powerful. Um, Reach out to that friend who you've not heard from in a while. Asking a simple question can go a long way. Sitting on a park bench and chatting to a stranger can help ease two hearts at the same time. That's really interesting because actually sometimes we find it more comfortable speaking to complete strangers who don't have, I suppose, an image of who we are in their mind, which may hinder us in relating. Priyanka, sharing a problem helps me to unburden, lifted a weight off my mind, off my body, and I felt instantly lighter. The world around me felt just a little bit brighter. It's a journey, but I know I'll eventually be out of the shadows. And Pratima, help. Please will you hear my voice? If I don't speak, I will go mad. Okay, on to the next. So the next is oh, there's one more. When we try to be creative, we automatically try to make things rhyme. Is that one okay? Two, are there better ways? Absolutely true. Creativity doesn't have to have a rhythm. And there's a book that I've been reading called Creative Confidence by Tom and David Kelly that are part of they've built an organization called IDEO, which is an international organization that pioneers the concept of design thinking. And it's called Creative Confidence. And I'll read a passage from there later on, actually. And Sumit, what you say is absolutely true, that creativity is also not just about words and ideas. Okay, so on to our next and final activity, actually. So it's been mentioned before in these creative sessions, particularly by Vidhu, who's really kind of introduced this concept and promoted this concept of a macro and a micro story. Stories, greatest ideas have multiple layers to them, and they connect with us on multiple levels. And broadly, they connect to our minds, that kind of intellectual, cerebral, conceptual part of our minds that try to make sense of things, that are rational, and then connect to our hearts as well, that emotive, that feeling. And I suppose the greatest stories in the world can do both simultaneously. So sometimes we live in that world where we throw around a lot of concepts or words that in and of themselves, they don't really mean anything apart from the value that we ascribe to them. So the task that I'm going to set, and we're going to go for three prompts, is I'm going to give you a macro concept, something which is conceptual, something which is very, very broad. And I want you to develop a micro story, a story that doesn't have to so overtly talk about the macro concept, but it's something which connects you. So again, first person, second person, third person, completely made up, poetry, prose, doesn't really matter. And just to give you an example of what that means, so we've all possibly read the book Animal Farm. Now, Animal Farm, the macro concept is all about the dangers of a communist state, an authoritarian state. That's the macro concept. But as you can imagine, possibly reading an essay on that or an academic paper could be quite dull and boring. And so what George Orwell has done is he's written it in the form of a story, a micro story about a group of animals. And that engages us because we can connect with that, because it's all about, well, in this case, animals, but actually it's about the human, the same feelings that we feel as humans. Another example, which is always stuck in my head, is we can talk about the war and the statistics around the various wars in the world, but actually what connects us is that story of that little girl who's at the dinner table staring at her father's empty shoes. So those are the stories that connect us. So I want you to humanize some of these grand concepts into one small story, and I'll give you about 2.5 minutes for each. 2 minutes. So the first one is, the whole world is one family. The whole world is one family. What does that mean? Give me a story that makes you really connect with that. Perhaps even think of an everyday example at home. Um, what's the feeling that you want to communicate? Okay, and the second one is treat joy and sorrow, victory and defeat, gain and loss as the same. Treat joy and sorrow, victory and defeat, gain and loss as the same. I suppose think about a time where you've, well, we've all faced it. We've felt really happy, really sad. We felt that we were the victors of the world, and then we were the losers of the world. We've gained something and we've lost something. So pick a story that communicates that and how we ought to try and be in equanimity in those situations. Okay, so I think we're approaching our time. So if you've got anything to share, please do comment. It'd be great to read some of these things. So what do we have? We have sitting on a park bench and chatting to a stranger can. Oh, sorry, that's already been read. Uh, he passed him on the subway, and suddenly their eyes met in that fleeting moment. He felt his loneliness and the days spent in the same position every day, waiting for someone to share a little food or drop a coin into his pot. In the flurry of his in the flurry of his business, he decided to stop and sit down next to him and ask him how he was. Connected by the thread and the character of goodness, a child falls in the park and a swarm of mothers rush to his aid. That's nice. Strangers with faces of concern, all wanting this little person to be okay. She ran out of butter on the Monday. We needed milk on Wednesday. Both meals got made in both houses without two frantic trips to the shops because that's what neighbors are for. As we chanted the bhajan at my father's funeral in our living room, encircling his coffin, I could hear my nana in Olad chanting over through the iPad. Okay, so that sort of almost completes the session for today. And like I said, I just want to read a small passage from this book called Creative Confidence. And creativity is much more than just coming up with ideas. Um, and it's got a brilliant sort of passage in here that talks about that. So I'll just leave you with this quote. At its core, creative confidence is about believing in your ability to create change in the world around you. It is the conviction that you can achieve what you set out to do. We think this self-assurance, this belief in your creative capacity, lies at the heart of innovation. Creative confidence is like a muscle. It can be strengthened and nurtured through effort and experience. So creativity isn't just about ideas. It isn't just necessarily about words. It's about creating something where it doesn't otherwise exist. And the meaning of tattva means the essence. In Sanskrit, it means the essence of something. So, for example, the essence of sugar is to be sweet. You take the sweetness out, it stops becoming sugar. So, tattva means the essence. It means to preserve what is good in the world whilst innovating it in such a way that it creates meaning for us here and now. So, it's preserving the timeless principles of what we know to be good in the world and innovating it for the modern context. So with that, wish you a very nice, pleasant Sunday, the rest of the day. Enjoy it. And we'll see you next week. Take care.